prior to the start of the season, nobody would have guessed that the highest Mercedes can go is P3, and Hamilton would be overlapped in the race. But that was the reality so far. And although Mercedes gained some momentum with consecutive podium finishes, the team is still far away from what they're used to. From consecutive 1-2 finishes and complete domination to waiting for your rivals to DNF and capitalize on your opportunity, Mercedes is working hard to change the narrative of the story, as the French GP is their next test. But why do they have such a high chance to win this race? The same was said about Silverstone, and we've seen Hamilton being very close to it until the safety car was deployed and Perez managed to do a miraculous drive. Stick with us until the end as we're going to explain how Mercedes might win it all on the 24th of July. Mercedes are currently P3 in the championship and are steadily putting out good results, mostly P3 and P4. But one cannot help but notice how the results from P3 and P4 don't include other rivals in the points finish. That isn't something that Mercedes should be ashamed of, as they aren't responsible for the reliability issues of their rivals or the accidents they're experiencing. But still, up until Silverstone, they showed little to no power to fight both Ferrari and Red Bull. As of Silverstone, the narrative has changed, and although it was mostly due to Ferrari being unable to come up with the right tactic and Verstappen and Perez being out of the competition for the majority of the race, it's still something. At the last GP, the failure of Sainz and the collision that Perez endured with Russell at turn 4 in the opening lap helped Mercedes finish P3 and P4. This enabled Russell to close the gap to Sainz, who managed to overtake him in the Drivers' Championship after his maiden win in Silverstone, where Russell wasn't able to finish the race due to the crash with Zhou. Now the difference is just 5 points between them, and Mercedes could look to the French GP in order to capitalize big. First of all, Mercedes is counting very much on the reliability of their car, and rightfully so. They haven't had an engine issue so far in this season, and although the pace and performance weren't there in the first place, they were constantly finishing the races, and with good solid results if we may add. Not what we were expecting prior to the season, but given the situation that the team was in the preseason testing and how they struggled with porpoising in the first couple of races, this is kind of a jackpot situation that the team is currently in. Just because of that reliability, Mercedes has scored lots of podiums and P4 finishes, ahead of the midfield but still behind the top dogs. Ever since Barcelona, we've seen that Mercedes' upgrades have shown lots of potentials. The next few races in Monaco and Baku showed that the city circuits are something we shouldn't expect Mercedes will shine in. But in Montreal, they still managed to rack up decent P3 and P4 finishes. True, Leclerc and Perez were out of the competition this time, but regardless, points are points and podiums are podiums. In Silverstone in Austria, the cars have shown amazing pace, and Hamilton has managed to string 3 podiums in a row, finishing P3 in Montreal, Silverstone in Austria. Now with this momentum going, the team is looking at the Paul Ricard GP to end the P3 finishes and go even higher, as they haven't done that in the first 11 races of the season. Imagine predicting this last year, huh? One thing that the Mercedes is really looking forward to is the smoothness of the track. Paul Ricard is one of the smoothest circuits on the calendar, made up of predominantly medium and high-speed corners. Mercedes have always done well here in the past, and although last year they were outsmarted by Red Bull and the dominant outlap Verstappen had, managing to complete a successful undercut, Mercedes was still very strong regarding race pace. But there is one problem that the team needs to work on, which is the qualifying pace. So far, they've been really struggling in this field, and even though their race pace is generally improving, it's much better to fight for the win starting from P2 or P3 than starting from P4 and below. True, fighting a Red Bull so far seems like a dream to Mercedes, as they've failed to keep them behind on every occasion they've raced so far. But in Silverstone, the W13 showed some great potential to fight the Ferraris, and although with missed tactic from the Italian team, Hamilton managed to secure a P3 on his home track. Therefore, Mercedes needs to focus on being better on Saturday in the qualifying sessions. The race pace is there, and Hamilton and Russell's adventure from last to P3 and P4 in Spain and Austria, respectively, have shown that Mercedes has what it takes to race. But it's one thing to race against Aston Martin, AlphaTauri and Alfa Romeo at the back of the grid, and a whole another to catch up with the big dogs up in the front. Therefore, having secured track position on Saturday will help them a lot, and even with the new upgrades that the team has introduced in Spain and Silverstone, Wolff believes that the gap has been narrowed down significantly to the top 2 teams. It's just that we're missing a few tenths here and there. I think we've halved the gap over the last few months. We understand better, but we're still 3rd, 4th. We're somewhere right in the middle of nowhere. But I would say if I try to pick the positives in a race space today, if we would have, which we didn't, started right in the top 6, probably we could have held on to Max and not been so far away. said Wolff, who also spoke about Hamilton and Russell's crashes in the qualifying session in Austria. For sure, the qualifying crashes didn't help, because even though you can set the car up and measure the car, it puts you on the wrong foot straight from the get-go. So we didn't expect to be really competitive here because of the nature of the track. It wasn't a happy place for us in the past, so I'm okay. We just need to continue to grind away, finished Wolff. He even spoke about the team's expectations in France and was a bit more optimistic than for the previous two races, saying, Paul Ricard should be okay. It's a smooth circuit, a little bit like Silverstone with fast corners, and on paper at least it looks like we can have a good performance there. We're starting to see we're chipping away performance from the leaders, which is good, but we find ourselves in a situation which we've always discussed, which is one day, after 8 consecutive titles, that series is going to break and we want to make it a blip and not some kind of a long cycle, finished Wolff. The French GP should also see the implementation of the new rules, such as that the bending of the underfloor and the measurement of the vertical oscillations, also known as porpoising. According to Mercedes, Red Bull and Ferrari have found a way to go around the rules regarding the allowed 2 mm bend of the plank wear, which is measured only at the front end of this part from the underfloor. Wolff said that he was hugely surprised that this hasn't been brought to a discussion up until now, and if he's right, then the drop in performance could be seen in Red Bull and Ferrari's cars. According to Verstappen, he has no idea why Hamilton and Mercedes are complaining about this because Mercedes has the most flexible floor compared to the other constructors. Therefore, we are in it for a good race, and if everything is to go to plan, then we might be even closer than before for a proper three-way fight for the win. With Ferrari's reliability issues and Sainz possibly having to start at the back of the grid due to him taking a new engine, the front row will be now more open for Mercedes to try and snatch at least P2 in the qualifying session. Given how strong Leclerc and Max are in the qualifying pace, and even Perez, it'll be hard but not impossible. What do you think is next for Mercedes? Do you think they have what it takes to win the race in France and be at least in the fight for P2 in both drivers and constructors championships? Or do you think that the most realistic finish for them is P3? Let's know in the comments below.